Hey everybody! Okay, so it's come to my attention that most of you did not have Southern Baptist grandmothers teaching you how to cook growing up. So I'm going to shoot a couple of just quick short videos to show you how to make some of my Southern favorites. So today we are making chicken and dumplings, and I'm going to walk you through the process step by step. It's super easy and delicious. Now, the first step to making chicken and dumplings, obviously, is boiling your chicken. And I have mine in a really large stock pot with a strainer insert. I like that because that way you can pull the chicken out easily and then all the vegetables come with it. I have garlic and onions, celery and carrots, and salt, pepper, and sage cooking in my chicken broth. But you don't actually want your vegetables to be in the chicken and dumplings. You want to be able to strain those out, but they add a nice flavor to the broth. So if you have a stock pot with a strainer, that's definitely the best route to go. So we're going to cook this chicken and all the vegetables in here together for about an hour. Okay, so while the chicken's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and start making my dumplings. So what I have here is 6 cups of Bisquick and 2 cups of milk. And this is a bowl with just a little bit of flour with some salt and pepper mixed in, and I'll show you why we do that in just a second. But we start with the Bisquick. We're going to add in 2 cups of milk. And then I'm going to salt and pepper this as well because I don't like my dumplings to have no flavor. Okay, so there's really no science to this. I'm just going to add some salt in here. If you don't salt the dumplings, they won't taste terrible, but to me they don't taste as good. So, but you know, butter and salt are the secrets to happiness. So I put butter and salt in just about everything. So we're going to add a little bit of pepper in here as well, just so they have some flavor. And we're going to stir it up. Okay, so you got to put a little bit of muscle into stirring these because they get really thick. And you don't want them too doughy, you want them just a little bit sticky, because if they're too doughy, then they'll dissolve in the broth. So when you stir them up, just make sure you have a good consistency to it. It needs to look probably a little bit drier than cookie dough, but still pretty sticky. So we're going to start making the dumplings now. This is just about right. You don't want them too small, but you don't want them too big either because then they take forever to cook. And I roll them a little bit, and here's the most important step that most people miss. You have to dip them in flour, because if you don't, then they will dissolve in the broth while they're cooking. So just kind of roll it around in the flour, coat it really well, shake off the excess flour, and set it aside. So just keep going, rolling your dumplings together, rolling them in the flour, setting them aside. Repeat about 5 million times until you've gone through all the dough. Another really important tip is to make sure you wear black when you're doing this, because you want to get a little bit of Bisquick on you so that when you're eating dinner with your family, they know how hard you worked and how much you sacrificed to make this wonderful dinner for them. So, you know, like any good Southern woman, you got to play the martyr every now and then. Okay, there are a lot of dumpling recipes on the internet that advise you to use canned biscuits, and I am wholeheartedly against that, not because I'm against a shortcut, after all I am using Bisquick, but I mean, how hard is it to mix Bisquick and milk? You really don't need to use canned biscuits, and then your dumplings come out tasting like canned biscuits. So take that extra step, mix some milk into some Bisquick. It won't kill you, and your dumplings will taste much better. Okay, so now we have our vegetables strained out and our dumplings made and our chicken out of the pot. So now we're going to debone the chicken, and in the meantime we are getting the broth back to a very slow simmer. You don't need it at a rolling boil. Just below boiling is probably about perfect. Okay, when you're deboning a chicken, it's easiest to start with the breast. This is my least favorite part of making chicken and dumplings, but it's very necessary. So just kind of get in here, get all the meat out, and chop it up really finely, and you can add it back to the broth as you get it chopped up. Don't get my yucky slipper in there. You know, I probably could have used these skills to become a heart surgeon and be significantly more financially independent than I am today, but... Okay, so we have our chicken breast here pretty chunky. You don't want the pieces too small, but you don't want them too big either. You want just enough so that with each forkful of dumpling, you get a nice little bit of chicken with it as well. So we've got this pretty well cut up. We're still going to do the dark meat, but we're going to go ahead and add in the chicken breast to the broth and get that going. Okay, now we're ready to add the dumplings. We've got all the chicken in here, and as you can see, it's a nice big chunks. You don't want the chunks too big, but you don't want them too small either. So it should look about like this. We're going to turn the heat down just a little bit because we just want it barely simmering. Then we're going to start adding in the dumplings. Okay, now we're going to start adding in the dumplings. It's really important to put them in by hand, and you want to go pretty slowly. And try to drop them in with some space between them. Oh, and Jill gets a dumpling. I dusted these with a little extra flour, just so they would stay separate while I was waiting for the chicken to finish cooking. You just add them all in, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, we still have some more dumplings to add, but I need to show you a really important step. As you're adding in the dumplings, you want to push them down into the broth so they all start getting cooked, but do not stir, because if you stir, you'll break them up and then you'll just have a really thick and creamy soup. Okay, now that all the dumplings are in, we're just going to push them down, make sure they're all covered by the broth. Be very careful not to stir. As you can see, they're getting nice and big now. Just push them down, make sure they're all covered. And then we're going to take the lid of the pot and cover them and let these simmer for about 15 minutes or so. Okay, so we're about 5 minutes into the cooking, and you can see the dumplings are getting nice and big. They're going to be delicious. Again, don't stir. You may just want to take a little bit of broth and cover them and just make sure that they're all getting nice and covered with the broth so they all cook evenly. Okay, now I've just added a little more salt and pepper. And I'm just smushing the dumplings down a little bit and covering them with the broth. Again, don't stir. Just kind of smush them down and cover the ones on top to make sure they're not getting dry and to make sure they're getting cooked nice and evenly. Just a gentle smushing. That's a southern term, you know, smushing. There's no G on the end of that, it's just smushing. And you don't want to do this too much, just probably once every 5 minutes or so. That's good. Okay, so there we go. Only 2 hours and 30 minutes of your life, and you have a delicious dinner of chicken and dumplings. So good you want to slap your mama.
Dinner. So someone say dinner.
Somebody said dinner. Chicken and dumplings.
Yeah. Hey, Mom.
Hey. Dumplings.
Oh, sweet. Good. You don't need to record me. Nice potato.
Is it good?
It's not mashed potatoes.
Is it good, Kendall?
Yeah.
Yeah? You like it, Addison?
Tell me it's not going to be hot this time.